The simulation chamber smelled like burned circuits and alien fear. 47 cadets from 11 different species stood at the entrance of the Galactic Academy's most infamous training module, the Deathworld Immersion Protocol. It was designed to replicate the environmental conditions of the most hostile planets in the known galaxy. Crushing gravity, toxic atmosphere, extreme temperature cycling, predator simulations running at full threat response. Most cadets completed maybe 30 minutes before the emergency extraction system pulled them out unconscious. The record was held by a Vreth warrior, 6 feet of armored muscle and 3 hearts, who had lasted 2 hours and 14 minutes before collapsing. Caleb Morgan walked in eating a sandwich. It was not a small sandwich. It was stacked with what appeared to be several layers of processed meat, something yellow and melted, and a thick piece of bread that had been toasted to a medium brown. He was carrying it with both hands, taking measured bites as he crossed the threshold, nodding politely at the orientation instructor like a student arriving slightly late to a lecture he had already read the notes for. The instructor, a Vreth named Instructor Karath, stared at him. "Human," Karath said slowly. "The simulation begins in 40 seconds. "I know," Caleb said, chewing. "I read the brief." "You are eating." "Lunch, yeah." Caleb looked down at the sandwich. "I didn't want it to go cold. Earth food gets weird when it's cold. Well, some of it's better cold, but this particular combination doesn't work that way." Karath opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. The 47 cadets behind Caleb exchanged looks. Hannah Foster was already inside the simulation chamber when Caleb entered, standing with the third group near the gravity calibration zone. She spotted him immediately, mostly because he was the only person in the room holding food, and pressed her fingers against her temple. She had known Caleb Morgan for 2 years at the academy. She had long ago stopped being surprised by him. She had simply graduated to a higher level of quiet resignation. "He brought a sandwich," said Drell, the Savian cadet standing next to her. Drell was built like a compressed boulder, with 4 thick arms and a natural resistance to atmospheric pressure that made him one of the top physical candidates in the entire program. "Yes," Hannah said. "Into the Deathworld Protocol." "Yes. Is that a human cultural practice? Bringing food to extreme survival training?" Hannah looked at Drell. "No," she said. "That is specifically a Caleb practice." The simulation began. Gravity shifted first. The chamber adjusted to 2.4 standard, the baseline Deathworld setting, and the effect was immediate. Cadets buckled, knees bent. 3 Savians went wide-legged to distribute their mass. The 2 Orvith cadets, who came from a low-gravity moon, immediately gripped the stabilization rails on the walls. Caleb finished the first half of his sandwich. He did not grip anything. He did not widen his stance. He rolled his shoulders once, the way a person does when they sit at a desk too long and feel a slight tension between the shoulder blades, and then he kept walking at the same pace toward the central assessment marker. Hannah, who had been training in weighted vests for the past 6 months in preparation for exactly this, was managing at a solid, controlled walk. She was proud of that. She was not going to pretend it was effortless. 2.4 standard was genuinely heavy, genuinely exhausting on the joints and the cardiovascular system. But she had prepared, and the preparation was working. She watched Caleb stroll past her like he was walking to a coffee counter. "How?" Drell said beside her, voice strained with effort. "Earth gravity is already higher than galactic standard," Hannah said, breathing carefully. "Most species come from planets closer to standard." Caleb grew up hiking mountains on weekends. His father was some kind of wilderness survival instructor. "That explains the sandwich," Drell said. "The sandwich needs no explanation," Hannah said. "The sandwich just is." The temperature dropped next. The chamber cycled down 40 degrees over 3 minutes, a cold shock protocol designed to test core temperature management and decision-making under physiological stress. 3 cadets triggered their emergency beacons. 1 Savian sat down on the floor and had to be talked back to his feet by his partner. Caleb pulled the collar of his jacket up slightly and ate the second half of his sandwich. He had brought a jacket. Nobody else had brought a jacket. The briefing materials had specifically said external gear would be neutralized by the simulation parameters, which was true. Energy shields and powered equipment were disabled. But a physical jacket was just a jacket. It followed no rules except physics. He had read the fine print. Hannah, who had not read the fine print about jackets because she had assumed it was irrelevant, was managing the cold through sheer trained discipline. She had done cold water exposure drills. She had studied thermoregulation techniques from 4 different academy programs. She was also deeply annoyed that Caleb was warmer than her. "Did he pack extra food?" asked Rel, an Orvith cadet on Hannah's left, small and graceful, and currently turning a faint shade of blue at the extremities. "I genuinely don't know," Hannah said. "With Caleb, you have to accept that the answer might be yes." The Predator simulation activated at the 1-hour mark. This was the stage where most cadets broke. The chamber generated holographic threat projections, scaled replicas of Deathworld apex predators running behavioral programs sourced from actual recorded hunt patterns. They weren't real. They couldn't physically harm anyone. But they moved correctly, they sounded correct, and every biological instinct in every species present screamed at cadets to run. 7 cadets extracted in the first 4 minutes. The projections were designed to key on movement, on the biological signals of panic, elevated heart rate, sudden motion, the chemical signature of adrenaline that most species released involuntarily when facing a predator. Caleb sat down on an equipment crate, took a small container from his jacket pocket, opened it, and began eating what appeared to be some kind of sliced fruit. A Deathworld apex predator simulation, a thing the size of a ground vehicle, with 6 limbs and a jaw structure that the program had built from fossil records, walked directly past him. It ignored him completely. The behavioral algorithm had no idea what to do with an organism that registered no flight response, no panic chemistry, no threat reaction of any kind. The program was built around predator-prey dynamics. Caleb Morgan was outputting the biological signature of a person eating fruit in a garden on a Sunday afternoon. The predator sim walked away. Drell made a sound that had no good translation in Standard Galactic. It was somewhere between awe and philosophical despair. "His heart rate," said the cadet monitoring biometrics from the side station. She was reading the data out loud because she needed someone else to confirm she was seeing it correctly. It went up 2 points when the predator passed him. 2 points. Hannah closed her eyes for a moment. She had trained for this. She had done fear inoculation protocols. She had worked with the Academy's top stress response coach for 4 months. She had gotten her heart rate under the recommended threshold during the Predator sim, which she was genuinely proud of. Her heart rate had still gone up 30 points. "It is not that he is not afraid," Hannah said, mostly to herself, remembering something Caleb had once told her when she asked him directly. "It is that he categorized the danger correctly and decided it ranked below lunch." "That is not better," Drell said. "I know," Hannah said. "I don't think he knows that." The simulation ended at the 2-hour 40-minute mark. Not because Caleb triggered an extraction. The chamber cycled down automatically. It had reached the end of the full protocol sequence. All remaining cadets were cleared. 14 cadets completed the full run. Hannah was one of them. Drell was one of them. Both of them looked like they had survived something, because they had. Their posture showed the particular tension of people who had pushed through something difficult through effort and will and prepared competence. Caleb stood up from the equipment crate, stretched, and threw away the empty fruit container in the recycling slot near the exit. Instructor Karath was waiting at the debrief station. He had reviewed the biometric data 3 times. He was a Vreth warrior who had run the protocol himself 12 years ago and nearly failed. He had spent those 12 years watching cadets come through this room. He looked at Caleb Morgan for a long moment. "Your physical readings were effectively baseline for the entire protocol," Karath said. "It wasn't that bad," Caleb said. "The temperature drop reached -18 degrees Celsius. I had a jacket." Karath stared at him. "You read the equipment clause." "I read everything," Caleb said. "I like knowing what the rules actually say." Karath was quiet for a moment. Around them, other cadets were filing out, exhausted and hollow-eyed, some of them holding warming packs the medical team had distributed. "Morgan," Karath said finally. "Yeah. Where are you from?" "Originally," Caleb told him. "A small city. Moderate elevation. Nothing remarkable on any galactic chart." Karath nodded slowly, the way someone nods when a thing finally makes sense. Not comfortable sense, not reassuring sense, but the kind of sense that rearranges something in your understanding of the universe. "Your planet," Karath said, "should not be classified as a death world." He paused. "It should be classified as the thing death worlds are afraid of." Caleb Morgan blinked, thought about it for a second. Then he nodded, the way a person nods when someone says something that is true but not particularly surprising. Yeah, he said. We get that a lot. He walked out into the corridor. Hannah fell into step beside him. You brought fruit, she said. It was a long session. You brought fruit into the Deathworld protocol. Hannah. He looked at her. I was hungry. She stared at him for 3 full seconds. Then she shook her head, pulled her warming pack tighter around her shoulders, and kept walking.